You know, you usually get those speeches about like finishing the year strong and all that stuff. What if you kind of like hobbled to the finish line? I think that would be the best way to describe December. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, bookworms? It's time for another monthly wrap up. This one for December of 2021. So the last regular month of the year, we are going to do like a year-end wrap up. But let's go ahead and wrap up the month of December before we do that. Let's begin, like usual, guys, with talking about what I read in December. It feels weird to say that I only read 4 books because I think I had scheduled 6. And I started to think, I'm not going to make that. And I think a big part of that is because one of those books was Reaper's Gale by Stephen Erickson. And that was a big old beefy book, like 1,264 pages, I think. And that pretty much dominated most of the month. Outside of that, I read 3 books by Anna Stevens. These were Godblind, these were Dark Soul, and these were Bloodchild, the Godblind trilogy as it were. So yeah, it was one of those kind of things where, I had some vacation time and I wanted to spend time with family and stuff like that. See here, battled getting sick, buying a car. Let's see here, it was actually Christmas, so there was lots of stuff to do prep for that. So it's just, that last crunch before you left work and stuff for vacation just kind of really took over any free time that I had this month. So I don't feel bad anytime you can read 4 books in a month. I don't feel bad about these aren't a race or anything like that. But it was kind of what inspired me to look at my schedule and be like, I need to make some changes. But we already talked about that. Let's go ahead and talk about book of the month, guys. Now, I didn't read any manga this month. I know I wanted to kind of finish Berserk, so I can't really do that. So really slim pickings here. And I think if you watch the channel on a weekly basis, you know that I wasn't very high on Reaper's Gale. So, okay, I got a trilogy of books to choose from by one author. So naturally, I'm going to have to go with my favorite in that trilogy, which was book number 2, Dark Soul. Now, I think what made Dark Soul so special and so different than the other ones is like the first one, you have your setup with all your characters. You feel like this impending battle is coming. Then it happens and it doesn't end. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting cliffhanger, right? So it'll be resolved early in the next book, right? It's still going in the second book. And then you get to the end of the second book, it's still pretty much going. Yes, the entire second book is a siege. And I thought that was very, very ambitious of Miss Stevens to do, with her debut series here, to spend a whole book working on this siege and what's going on outside and inside those walls. It's very well done. And I think it was done in a way that never really got exhausting, because I feel like some sieges in fantasy books can get exhausting for a while, especially when you're talking about 300 plus pages of said siege. But I think that she did it in a very compelling way, and she continued to develop her characters along the way, and some of them really took a major turn in this book. But it's really something that I feel like a lot of people really, when they go into the series, I don't think they'll be expecting what this book gives them, because the first one does really set up a world like you would somewhat expect. You'll be kind of describing it as kind of like the mix between Faithful and the Fallen and the First Law, somewhere like in that gray area right there. And for it to be just quite so different, I think, by the time you get to this middle book, is kind of what differentiates this series from a lot of just, also rans that I've seen just kind of try to do the same thing that she did in this. So I give her credit definitely for changing some things up, but, never ever seeming so foreign that you don't know what's going on or just feel like, what was she thinking with this? Never has like a jump the shark moment or anything, but it does have some things that make you raise some eyebrows, but like, wow, this is different that I've seen, but in a good way. And that's why I would say that Dark Soul would be my book of the month for December, and for the Godblind trilogy as a whole. It's a recommend for me. I think you should check it out if you've got some time on your hands. And yeah, that segment's usually a lot longer, right? But it doesn't help that it's New Year's, and guys, they're still doing fireworks outside, so there might be more cuts in this than usual. They're just very loud, very, very loud. Let's move along with some channel growth for the month. I keep talking about how things have kind of slowed down. That continued here. 1,524 new subscribers for the month of December. That's down 352 from November. So that trajectory continues to go downward. However, the engagement and the watch time and all that stuff did actually tick back up after a very lackluster November. 347,000 views is up 43,000 from November. 63,000 hours of watch time, up 8,000 from November. And, I feel like at this point, the whole. I mean, we did cross 62,000 today, or I'm sorry, yesterday. We actually did cross it yesterday, and that's great. Again, these are always just kind of things. And guys, I had 50,000 as my goal for the end of the year, so far exceeded that. But you start looking at long term, and if 100,000 is like your end goal, it doesn't seem as feasible as it did just 3 months ago. Just because I gotta follow the data here. This is like a quarter of the year now, and actually I kind of think the first quarter and the last quarter of 2021 were really pretty abysmal as far as like growth compared to the previous year. But you want to kind of look at it like that. We'll look at that more when I talk about 2021 as a whole, when you start comparing between years and stuff. But again, the channel growth on the channel it's fine. It's hard for me, like I said, to be discouraged. When you got that much engagement, so there's got more people are watching and commenting and stuff like that on the channel than are subscribing. So I got to kind of try to figure out what's going on there. It feels like you have content that is quality for people, but they aren't sticking around, with that subscribe button. But again, in the end, as long as people are engaged, that is what matters. And when you talk about engagement, you got to talk about the most popular content for the month. This is always something interesting to go and look at because it was kind of a crazy month. I thought that really these Wheel of Time videos that I was doing with Madison was gonna, kind of take over the month, and none of them landed in the top 5 for the month. I did do 24 videos in the month of December, which is pretty neat considering how much I felt like I had doing. That's only 7 days off this month, So I think a lot of this recording ahead really does help you keep those kind of things up. So you're a content creator and you're looking at how do I get stuff out there more at a time. Record them all in one day. That's what I recommend, especially if you got busy things going on during the holidays. But number 1 video for the month, top 10 books of 2021. Obviously, it's 15,000 views as of recording this, and that's always going to be one of my more popular videos for the year. Obviously, people love a top 10, and then they love to see you rank everything that you read for the year. And I still get the people being like, hey, why don't you do a tier list? Because I feel like tier lists are kind of gutless. I got people told me that it was gutless that I stopped like ranking some of like off the book segments, stuff like that. To me, I was gutless because I wouldn't just like, rank something. I just kind of feel about a tier list. It's like you're basically you're afraid to put something as number 1, number 2, number 3. You got to be like, oh well, it's all S tier or it's all A tier. But like it's kind of wimpy. So that's why I stay away really from tier lists. But anyway, top 10 books. I think what was really surprising about that video for me was I do lean kind of heavily fantasy on this channel, and 3 of my top 5 were sci-fi books. So always some pleasant surprises in there. And then again, my number 1 book of the year was a book I didn't even plan to read. It was just kind of like a mood read. So it's crazy how things like that do tend to happen over the course of the year. Next up, 10 most disappointing books of the year. This one was at 14,000 views when I pressed record here. I always say that people love to hear the negative more than they like to hear the positive, but the top 10 is actually outpacing the top 10 most disappointing. So maybe I was a little bit wrong on that one. But you read 73 books in a year, you're gonna have some that maybe don't hit the mark for you, really. And like I said in that video, none of those people are bad authors. None of those are bad books. They just might have been something that just didn't really hit the bill for me this year. Just some things that just wasn't what I was looking for, I think. And sometimes these are just bad timing, guys. You can read a couple of slow books that are in danger of putting you into a reading slump, and then you read one right after, and you kind of take it out on that book a little bit. That does still happen, So look at that for what you will. I just hope that no one thinks that I would ever say, well, they should have done this and they've done. I'll never be that guy who criticizes authors in that way. Next up, my new series I'm starting in 2022 in permanent ink, as I put it, is in like, these are series that I'm reading next year, or now this year, no matter what. I am not moving them off the schedule. I might move them around, but they are all getting started in 2022. I never said I was completing them in 2022, but I will be starting several. That was at 13,000 views. So I do find that it seems like people are more interested usually in what I'm going to read than what I have read. At least that's kind of how I've looked at it recently. But always fun conversation. A lot of new series I plan on starting there. I've already started one with Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, for example. But lots of I don't want to say disappointment. There's people are like, well, what about this series, this series, and this series? And I'm like, hey, I'm just one person, But I do have more things on the horizon now that I've decided to ease back on some of the other content that I planned on doing on the channel, and some things I was planning on, no more rereads and things like that, as well as, just, hey, if something comes up and I really, really am interested into it, I feel like after Malazan ends in June, I can fit those in maybe if I want to. So it leaves more freedom, I think, for the channel, which is what I talked about with 13,000 views. My channel announcement changes coming in 2022. And again, it's just I felt like I've got way too much stuff behind me here I've never read that I would love to get to. And I found myself being like, these people who spend their time rereading Wheel of Time, what a bunch of idiots, you know? And I'm like, but you're rereading all these Stephen King and Michael Crichton books you've already read. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and that. And I didn't feel bad because, like I said, with the Michael Crichton one, I just wanted to get more people to check out Michael Crichton. I felt like I achieved that. And with King, I'm always going to read King. It's just I'm not going to do it on a schedule. You know, when it's rereads, I'm going to do it when I got time, or when I feel like it, or if I need to break up the monotony of some epic fantasy or some series, I can always pick up that King book and have a little bit of comfort there. So that's kind of what that video was all about. And it's been mostly well received, easing back on the Malazan content a little bit, trying to do more collaborations with other content creators and stuff. That's some stuff I've really enjoyed doing this year. Then, of course, my Wheel of Time response video. And that was really just kind of like the gatekeeping about how much of a fan are you. If you've only been a fan for 3 years or 30 years, does it matter? Things like that. I will not lie, guys. That's some of the nastiest comments I've ever received on this channel. So I said that will be the last I speak on it. That's pretty much it. It was based off of the negative response that Madison and I were getting for As the Wheel Turns videos, and saying that you can't tell me if I'm a Wheel of Time fan or not, because I'm a Wheel of Time fan. If you don't feel like I'm as big a fan as you, okay, good for you. I don't put these things in power rankings. You're a fan or you aren't. But everybody is different, and I understand that. And like I said, feedback received. I don't do a lot of rant videos on the channel. Just some things that got said to me really stuck in my head, and I let it get to me, and I probably shouldn't do that. But you know what? Hey, you're going to make 250 videos a year. Every once in a while, you're going to do when you look back and think, I probably shouldn't have done that. It's going to happen from time to time. The way I look at it, it could have been much worse. It could have made a much worse video, right? But still getting several comments on that one per day, to the point to where I'm like, I'm not going to read these anymore because they aren't very, very nice, honestly. Some favorites that I had that didn't really hit these numbers. My interview with Jay Kristoff, as well as reviewing his Empire of the Vampire, was something, because that was just such a pleasant surprise. And honestly, he was way cooler to talk to than I ever could have imagined. I didn't imagine he'd be, boring to talk to, but it was just such a fun conversation. We talked for over 2 hours, and it went by like this. He's just such an awesome guy. And the fact that we're still like emailing and talking about metal bands and stuff, it's just cool. He's just an awesome guy. And I look forward to reading more of his stuff. I'm going to be dipping into Nevernight here very, very soon. Both of those videos had about 8,000 views. Talked about why I decided to read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, which I've actually started now, and I'm liking it a lot right now, with that history of that series with my brother and I. And personal torment and anguish from an older sibling will drive you to do some crazy things, right? I don't consider it too crazy, because it's a series I always wanted to read, but it always felt like it was always had attached this set of expectations, so I think that might have been internally why I was kind of subconsciously putting it off, but now that I am doing it, I'm excited. So I'm hoping it's great, and I will get told that you're an idiot because you waited this long, much more than you're an idiot because you don't like it. But either way, I'm an idiot, but I will accept these things. And then, of course, just all my As the Wheel Turns stuff with Madison was a ton of fun, because, look, guys, I love talking to you. Don't get me wrong, but it's nice to have someone talk back to you once in a while. So to be able to have a personal friend come on the channel and talk to you about Wheel of Time is always going to be a lot of fun. So I had a great, great time doing all those, and I just want to thank her again right here for taking the time out of both of our very busy schedules and making sure that we could find a time each week to nail that down and talk about, the adaptation of a series that we love. So regardless of how you feel about the show, it was fun talking with Madison about those things. Talk about a few channel goals for January before I go. I'm saying this is always just kind of I feel like I repeat the same things every month, so I guess, let's do that again. I feel good about the changes that I've made. I think that it's going to give me a lot more freedom going forward, cutting out some of those series. And again, a lot of that comes off feedback, guys. If you telling me things, some things you don't tell me, I look at the data and I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense, to keep making this content that it seems like your audience isn't, interested in as a whole. There's a very, very small portion of people who are enjoying it. And I know that some people think that is an interesting decision, that I shouldn't make decisions based off stuff like that. with me, guys, like I said, it's always, I have way more content ideas than I have time and days in the year to make these videos. So if it's stuff that you guys aren't interested in, I'm going to listen to that, and I'm going to usually go with the majority on this because I am a people pleaser in the end. And yes, I do look at data and stuff like that. So it's going to happen from time to time. I'm going to make some decisions, that some people might feel disappointed in, and I do apologize for that. But, got to do what I think is best for the channel. And that's why I made some of the changes I did. But I'm really excited about the excitement I've received about people reading Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I was one of those things where I said that it didn't feel like anyone really talked about that series. But as soon as I said I was going to read it, I was amazed by the outpouring of love and people that were excited to join that had never done it. People have been telling me the same thing. I've had that book series on my shelf for 10, 15, 20 years and never got to it. And, now I'm going to do it since you got a group on the Discord reading it together. And guys, I've been doing it for a day here, and it was just like the conversation is just booming. It's great. It's great. I feel like it's back to, when we started Gardens of the Moon last January, it was just off the wall, just like there's so much discussion and excitement and people wanting to talk about it. And I feel like this one, people are going to stick around to the end, even if they haven't, with Malazan. So I'm excited about that. It's always, it feels like it's nice to do a read along that doesn't quite have so much control over everything like Malazan's kind of have. This feels like really, hey, it's January, read it when you can, talk about it when you want. Be people there to talk to about it. But I'm very excited about some of the changes I got in the pipe, that I plan on doing here, and seeing how they work out, and some stuff I want to try coming up in January, seeing how they work. Because I'm never going to stop trying to do new things, Not all of them are going to land, but I never want to stop trying to do new things. And I'll get more into my goals really for the channel as a whole when I do my wrap up for all of 2021 sometime later this week. I would look for that probably Thursday or so. Try to give us some space, because I don't like to do like a December wrap up and then the yearly wrap up right after it. So I like to keep a couple days for that. So lucky for you, I got a couple of content ideas between then and now. But another fun month, and I'm glad that you guys have stuck with me. I hope you guys had a great Christmas and you're already having a great New Year. What are your kind of goals going forward? I always want to hear what you guys think about what you did in December, what you're looking forward to doing in January. There's always some fun things. Drop in the comments. Let me know your book of the month. I always love to hear that conversation, because that's how I learn about new things that I'm going to read. So drop in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there. Have a great New Year.